Hi everybody, it's RPG Grandma with another exciting video on game mechanics. Just what y'all live for, right? So let's talk about continued Metamorphosis Alpha here. And we're going to talk about alignments, classes, and experience points. There's no alignments, there's no classes, and there's no experience points in Metamorphosis Alpha. However, the later Gamma World reintroduced experience points and has a tier system in which the characters get a random bonus every time they hit a certain tier of experience points, and it explains what to give experience points out for, how to do that. So if you wanted to introduce that, I would use the original experience points system in Gamma World. Okay, and example of the bonuses would be you roll on a 10-sided dice when you hit these thresholds, and whatever the number comes up, that's what you get. So it's like +1 to mental strength, +1 to constitution, dexterity, charisma, physical strength. They have intelligence for Metamorphosis Alpha. It would be, say, radiation resistance. They also have a range that gets you a plus to hit in physical combat, and another range that increases the damage you inflict from an energy weapon. So that would be my suggestion, is take a look at Gamma World 1E's rules on that. If you want some way to reward the players. But let's take a look at what's going on. So, for whatever reason, they decided not to have alignments, at least in the versions of Gamma World I've seen, which was the original, and Metamorphosis Alpha. I know they made some changes later, and I don't know if they added alignment in. I didn't bother to research that because I'm not doing like a Gamma World in depth. But it's important to understand alignment got complicated quickly, but it was inherited from chainmail into Dungeons and Dragons, and it was initially a way to figure out who would ally with who would form alliances for the big battles in chainmail. So you had law, you had forces of law, you had the forces of chaos, and the neutral forces, which could go either way. All right? And that was for those big fantasy combats. Then it was put into D&D, and Greyhawk was more of a law chaos sort of economy, and Blackmore was more your good versus evil economy. All right, and then you got the whole law, chaos, good, evil, neutral, the whole big thing, the whole big write-ups on what's going on there. And it got very complicated very quickly. And, I don't know, by the late 80s, early 90s, people were like pulling their hair out over alignment and stuff. If I were to have an alignment have anything to do with Metamorphosis Alpha, which I'm not inclined to do, but if I did, it would be based on chainmail concepts, which is just figuring out who might get along with whom. Not so much the good, evil, any of that stuff, but just who might form alliances, and which is what its original purpose was. And then it got way more complicated into psychology and stuff, and just keep it simple. But it is not Metamorphosis Alpha. You don't need it. I played Gamma World without it as well. You don't need it. You don't. So then that brings us to classes. Well, what's going on with the classes if there's no classes? I mean, D&D, look how many classes are in it. Well, I think it's a premise thing. I do know in one of the editions, later on, they do introduce classes to Gamma World, but I don't think that was in keeping with the original ideas behind Gamma World when you look at the player characters. Because Gamma World's player characters, like Metamorphosis player characters in these early editions, were people going out and adventuring. And there was a lack of knowledge about the ancient technology, their ancient ancestors. They're all going to be fighting. They're all going to be stealing. They're all going to be trying to survive. They're all going to be exploring. And so, in that sense, they're all pretty much the same character class. Okay? The only difference being whether they're a pure strain human, a mutant human, a mutant animal, or later on, mutant plants. So, when you look at Metamorphosis Alpha, it's very much coming from that premise of you're going out and exploring the universe. All right? You are an explorer. There isn't a need for a class. What there is a need to learn to do things that your player character will learn to do individually. And that is how your player character is going to become different from another player character, and if they get mutations and things like that. So it's much more a gear-based game, a individual skill-based game based on the game mechanics. There's a way to learn how to operate things and learn knowledge in the game, both original Gamma World and original Metamorphosis Alpha, which is based on Star Empire's research charts. And the mechanic came from there. And that's what you're doing. So, from my personal perspective, Metamorphosis Alpha and original Gamma World, it's more individualized, skill-based. It's what the character figures out how to do. And that's how you stay alive. Better gear, learning how to survive in the environment, gaining knowledge, gaining individual skills, and operating ancient technology, which is different than D&D, where you have all these professions. Now, I do understand it's one of the additions way later on. They tried to bring Gamma World more in line with D&D, and so then they created classes and all that stuff, but that's not the game we're looking at. We're looking at this much more, better freedom for the players and the game master, in my opinion, this early game, because the game master gets to say, yeah, you can do that, and if you don't know how to do something, there's a whole mechanic for learning it, trying to figure it out, and then once you have it figured out, then you know how to operate guns and lasers and things like that. You might not know what it's called, but you know how to operate it. So you have that skill. All right. So that is a very different premise than D&D, where you have societies where people they get trained on how to do things by society. You go to school to be a magic user, you go to school to be a baker, and so on. This is a completely different way of approaching the game. And so if you're into skills, and in fact, there's Dragon magazines where article for an alternate way to start the game, and they literally list off skills the player could start with, having been cloned and then programmed by the computer. So, very different approach if you think about it, and very liberating if you want to go that pathway. Here is a rule book that will let you. Anyway, have a great day, and I hope you're enjoying looking at this super old game, Metamorphosis Alpha, and what you can do with it and the freedom it presents. Bye!